Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, has signed a number of executive orders on his first day, a lot of them back to back to back to back. He's still signing executive orders. Most of them I do not agree with, but there are, I think, one or two, actually two. I think there's two of them that I do agree with. First and foremost, we're going to start with the Gaza situation. So you see Donald Trump is sitting here. APAC tracker is on it, by the way. He's sitting here just signing these executive orders. And the question of Gaza comes up. Everyone pay close attention to this.
Then are you, Mr. President, that you can keep the ceasefire in Gaza and conclude the three phases of this deal?
I'm not confident. That's not our war, it's their war, but I'm not confident. But I think they're very weakened on the other side.
Do you support the two-state?
Gaza, boy.
So did everybody hear what Donald Trump said? He said he's not confident about the ceasefire lasting. That's because we all know that Israel is going to continue to hit back. He's not confident about the ceasefire lasting. And then he goes on to say, it's not our war. I kid you not. Listen to this.
I looked at a picture of Gaza. Gaza is like a massive demolition site. That place it's really got to be rebuilt in a different way.
Do you plan to help rebuilding Gaza?
My mind. You know, Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, best weather, you know, everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
How do you see the future in governance for Gaza?
Well, it depends. I can't imagine you could have, well, you certainly can't have the people that were there. Most of them are dead.
So did you hear that? You can't have the people who are there. Most of them are dead. He talks about the beachfront property. So this is the land grab, ladies and gentlemen. What have I been telling you since October 7th? Israel wants the land. Now, Donald Trump is there talking about rebuilding Gaza, but I think we all know what happens when you rebuild. We can just look around here in the United States and look at some of these neighborhoods that have been rebuilt. There is massive gentrification. If you look at some of these cities in DC, for example, Boston, right here where I am, you can see it in New York City. You can see it happening all over. Typically, when there is rebuilding, the residents who are already there are not going to be able to stay to enjoy what is rebuilt. They will be pushed out. So the Palestinian people in Gaza, those who are still alive, by the time this all comes around and gets settled, most likely they are going to be pushed out. They will become refugees again. Remember, a lot of them were refugees in the first place. That's how they got to Gaza. They came in as refugees. So this is the land grab. Now, for the people who told me, Tony said it here. Tony said, how serious are you guys about money out of politics? Because folks were saying that in 2024 and still voted for Kamala Harris. I agree with you, Tony. I didn't vote for Kamala or Donald Trump. I voted for Jill Stein. And that's one of the reasons, but not the only reason. Because the reality is, you see these politicians are bought and paid for, ladies and gentlemen. So you see what's happening. I said this before. Whether it was Trump or Kamala who would have won, this would have continued. Netanyahu would still try to get the land. I think that under Kamala, it probably would happen a lot slower. I think they were trying to drag it out quietly until the protests happened. But either way, they were all on Israel's side. Another thing that came up was TikTok, right? So signing the TikTok executive order, one of the questions that is posed to Donald Trump is, why did you try to ban it in 2020? Why did you consider banning it in 2020? Listen to this.
Long way. Oh, look at that. It says TikTok. My. What is that all about?
First, we have Alaska, sir. This is an executive order relating to unleashing Alaska's potential as an energy reservoir for the entire nation.
And what about Anwar?
I believe that would be included in aspects of the order.
So we're opening up Anwar.
On the TikTok piece, President Trump, you and your members of your team now used to warn about the dangers of TikTok spying on Americans. What changed that you're not worried about that anymore?
Well, it depends on the deal. I mean, I may not do the deal or I may do the deal. TikTok is worthless. Worthless. If I don't approve it, it has to close. I learned that from the people that own it. If I don't do the deal, it's worthless, worth nothing. If I do the deal, it's worth maybe $1 trillion, $1 trillion. So if I do the deal I'm talking about doing it for the United States. If I do the deal for the United States, then I think we should get half.
The TikTok CEO.
In other words, I think the U.S. should be entitled to get half of TikTok.
So this is the catch, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about money. So Donald Trump is saying that the U.S. should be able to get half of TikTok. So you see, there's always a catch. It's not just, I'm going to save this app. I'm going to do this just because it's the right thing to do. No, this was a business decision. And now you're seeing a possible business transaction. He's saying that TikTok can't survive without us.
And congratulations, TikTok has a good partner. And that would be worth, could be $500 billion or something. It's crazy. The numbers are crazy. But it's worthless if the president doesn't sign, then it's worthless. If the president does sign, it's worth maybe $1 trillion. So I think, like a joint venture, I think we would have a joint venture with the people from TikTok. We'll see what happens. I mean, that's one of many ideas I've
The
had.
CEO is down. Did he say that he's open to that idea?
Who?
The CEO of TikTok is around.
Oh, I think he'd probably like it. Because he's got nothing. I mean, they really have nothing. It's passed in Congress. It gives the president a right to make a deal or to close it. And we have 90 days to make that decision. But I could see making a deal where the U.S. gets 50% of TikTok, polices it a little bit or a lot.
Everybody hear this?
Depends on them.
Polices it a little bit or a lot. Does everybody hear this? So those of you who migrated to Red Note probably might want to still stay on Red Note, right? Like, I'm not getting too excited about trying to post on TikTok. I haven't posted on there in a long time anyway. But did you hear that? Police it a little bit. So don't think that just because it's back now, that there still isn't going to be that type of overreach. So this brings up that question again. If the U.S. gets half of TikTok, and the owner of TikTok was at President Trump's inauguration, by the way. So if the U.S. gets half of it, what does that really mean? So we could be still talking about some form of control.
But remember, they make telephones in China. They make all sorts of things in China. Nobody ever complains about that. Here they're complaining about this. There's so many different products made in China, and nobody ever complained about it. The only one they complain about is TikTok. And TikTok is largely young people. I guess I have a warm spot for TikTok that I didn't have originally. But, I went on TikTok, and I won young people up by 36%, Peter. And Republicans typically don't do too well with young people. But it's a different Republican Party.
Would the U.S. government buy a portion of TikTok then, or how would it get that 50%?
No, you'd take 50% of TikTok for the approval that TikTok could continue in business. And they'd have a great partner. The U.S. would be their partner. But the U.S. essentially would be paid for doing that half of the value of TikTok.
Would there be a private sector owner as
Could
well in
be,
the
yeah,
U.S.?
it could be a lot. Tell you what, every rich person has called me about TikTok.
You wanted to block TikTok. Why did you change your mind?
Because I got to use it. And remember, TikTok is largely about kids, young kids. If China's going to get information about young kids, I don't know.
Are you
I think,
Chinese?
to be honest with you, I think we have bigger problems than that. But when you take a look at telephones that are made in China and all the other things that are made in China, military equipment made in China, TikTok, I think TikTok is not their biggest problem. But there's big value in TikTok if it gets approved. If it doesn't get approved, there's no value. So you guys get the point here. So pay attention to what is being said there. Pay attention to what he's saying about there might police it a little bit. The U.S. needs to get half of TikTok, because I want you to hold that, just keep that in your head. When we get to these executive orders, there's a couple I want to highlight here. Tracking Trump's executive orders, what he signed so far. So let's get into some of this. And he signed a lot. He signed a lot of them just on the first day. Immigration. So curtail immigration at the southern border. He promised mass deportations, but hasn't detailed how it would implement it. But it goes on to say here, he has declared a national emergency at the Mexico border.
So that has already happened. He has also, it says here, he designed certain international, designated certain international cartels and organizations to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. He suspended the U.S. refugee admissions program. Everybody hear this? Nearly 1,600 Afghans cleared by the U.S. to resettle in the country, including family and active duty U.S. military personnel, had their flights canceled following Trump's orders. So some of this has already started to take place. I've seen videos on TikTok of people talking about how they're seeing ICE already start to move in and raid people. Now, this could be those raids that you see happening already right now. That could be people that already had like some type of, I don't know, some type of ticket or something like that. Might have been people that they were already looking for, right? But it's moving very quickly. Another one here, Remain in Mexico policy. Trump reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy, ending a program that released asylum seekers into the U.S. while their cases were considered. So they can't come into the U.S. while they're awaiting their case. So here's another one. This is the one that is going to be the most controversial when it comes to immigration, about whether or not this will actually get done. Trump birthright citizenship executive order. One of his boldest moves was to attempt to end birthright citizenship for those born to undocumented immigrants. I don't know how he's going to get this through the courts, because birthright citizenship is protected by the U.S. Constitution, and the order already faces legal challenges. So that's one, and that's a tricky one, you know, like ending the birthright citizenship. I don't see how that one gets through the courts, right? So I hear people talking about that already. That is going to have legal challenges. Another thing I want to push back on, some people on social media, they're saying, well, technically, wouldn't, you know, his children be considered under that birthright citizenship status because of Ivana? No, because he was a citizen. So it's not like he's not going to implement something that is going to hurt him. Okay. So let's get this together. Like, that's not going to happen there. It says it also applies to children born to mothers who were lawful temporary residents and the fathers who were not citizens or lawful permanent residents. So again, the birthright citizenship, I just don't see how that will get through the courts, being honest with you. Energy and environment executive orders. He declared a national energy emergency, ordering expedited, deregulated drilling, as well as he repeatedly vowed to drill, baby, drill. So again, not good for the environment. That being said, Joe Biden was already drilling as well. Remember Joe Biden, when he ran, he said no new drilling permits. Well, he totally went back on that when he approved the Willow Project. So I want to be very clear, because I have a pretty diverse audience here, but it's important that you understand that it's not that drilling wasn't happening under Biden. It was still happening. I think what was different is that Biden put a nicer face in front of it by saying that I'm not going to approve any more drilling permits, even though he did anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, behind closed doors, he still did it. Whereas Trump was more overt about it. Trump is probably going to allow more drilling than Biden, but at the same time, Biden was also allowing drilling as well. People need to acknowledge that. And I'm noticing a lot of Democrats are not acknowledging that. But that's a big one. The other one here, in a separate memorandum, he paused offshore wind leasing in federal waters. The Paris Climate Treaty, this is a big one. He's also signed an order withdrawing the U.S. from the world's largest greenhouse gas emitter, from the Paris Climate Agreement. This one is bad. I think Donald Trump did this in 2016 as well. And then when Joe Biden won, he came back and he reinstated it. Now Trump is undoing this again. You know, these presidential elections, this country is just so petty sometimes, because it used to be that if you became president, in so many ways, you kind of had some type of respect for what the president did who came before you. There may be a couple things that you might reverse, but it wasn't like this back and forth thing. And I just see this country with being very unstable. And I don't think that's good for any of us. So I heavily, heavily disagree with that. Another one that he did here is the DEI. So let's look at this one. Executive orders targeting DEI and transgender Americans. Monday, he stated that the policy of the U.S. is to recognize two sexes, male and female, on official documents. These sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental. This is going to be very difficult because I don't know, man. I don't know how this is going to go over well. I don't know how this is, especially for people who may already have this one way on their documents. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But the DEI situation, something I want to mention to white women who may be watching. A lot of people are pointing to the DEI and they're saying, this is great, he's removing this. I have mixed opinions about the DEI stuff, mixed opinions. I've seen it kind of work okay, but I've also seen it work pretty poorly in workspaces. But I just want white women to know that this is going to affect you too. DEI doesn't just apply to Black people or Latino people. A lot of times people point to that and don't realize that when a lot of these workplaces started to say we are going to adapt a DEI agenda or DEI programs for hiring, etc., that also included white women. Same thing with affirmative action. I've said this over and over again. Affirmative action greatly benefited white women in the workplace. Not Thursday, but I think Friday night, I'm going to get into this when I talk about Gloria Steinem. We're going to do a deep dive about Gloria Steinem and how that feminist movement actually hurt the civil rights movement. We'll get into all that a little bit more deeper, and I'll explain to you how once that feminist movement started, that actually made it possible for white women to be included with affirmative action. We'll dive into all that on Friday, honey buns. All of that on Friday. I've always had mixed opinions about the DEI because, like I said, in the workplace, I've seen it work okay sometimes, but most of the times it didn't work out well. And I've seen DEI mainly benefit white women. So there's that as well. But we'll see how this is just oh my God, it's a lot happening. Other executive orders affecting federal workers. So Donald Trump is requiring that full-time federal workers have to be ordered back into the office. So if you were working from home, you now have to go back into the office. And what I want to say about that very quickly is I've always been a firm believer that if you can do your job at home, you should be able to do it at home, right? But what is happening is you have real estate that's attached to this. So when people were allowed to go work from home, you know, all these companies that invested in these buildings and these properties, they're just seeing their office spaces not go to use because they were empty. So now they're like, no, you got to come back. You got to come back in. So they're making them go back in. Again, I don't agree with that one either. Like I said, if you can do your job from home, you should be able to do it from home. Another one that I want to mention, I'm just trying to go through this is the big one too, the January 6 pardons. So Trump pardoned the vast majority of January 6 defendants charged with participating in the Capitol riot and commuted the sentences of 14 others. So there's a lot of criticism around this one. And my big thing is, as I said before, now just imagine if they were BLM rioters. Imagine if they were BLM protesters that showed up at the Capitol that way. Would they be pardoned? No, they would not be. The problem that I have with the way our presidents are using these pardons is that it's all partisan. It's all about what benefits them or what benefits their party. It's not even fair across the board anymore, with the exception of Leonard Peltier, which I do agree with that one. Well, he wasn't pardoned, he was commuted. Julian Assange. Well, Julian wasn't, He wasn't pardoned either. Anyway, you get the point that I'm talking about. They make it partisan, and I feel like it shouldn't be that way. So my thing is, again, like I said, would they have pardoned the BLM protesters? No. I mean, there were BLM protesters that went to jail, right? They're not pardoned. So there's that. This is another big one, health executive orders. So a lot of people seem to be very happy about this one, that Donald Trump signed an order pulling the U.S. from the World Health Organization. So a lot of people that were very critical about the pandemic are very happy about that one, right? So the WHO. That's a big one. So I'm sure a lot of people who also supported RFK Jr. are probably happy about that one as well. This one, let's go to some more. TikTok extension, Doge, etc. Ensuring government agencies do not unconstitutionally abridge the free speech of any American citizen, highlighting what Trump and his allies considered censorship under Biden. This is the one that I agree with. And I don't agree with Trump on much. That's the one I do agree with, is the censorship. I don't think the government should be involved with social media, telling these companies what they can have on their platforms, what they can't have, who they have to suppress, who they have to silence. Don't agree with that 100% at all. Now, here's something we need to think about. I noticed at his inauguration that, of course, Elon was there, right? So you have some of the tech people there. Mark Zuckerberg was also there. And my only question is, when you think back to what happened with Tulsi Gabbard, how she flip-flopped on surveillance, my big question is, now that Tulsi has changed her mind about the government being able to spy on the American people, what if the trade-off for us to get the free speech and to get the government out of these platforms, what if the trade-off is to allow these platforms to have more surveillance? Why did Tulsi Gabbard have to change her mind about how she felt about the U.S. spying on the people? Why did she have to change that in order to get that position to be sworn in? People need to start asking these questions, regardless of who you voted for. What is the trade-off? Again, I agree with this one. I agree with the censorship, 100% agree. But the collaboration here with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all the techie bros that were at the inauguration, I'm starting to wonder, what if this means that in return, we will have an increase of surveillance? And people just need to ask these questions. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, Sabs, just give them a pass on this one. Again, I agree with this one. But I'm also asking some damn questions. Another one here, ordering a review of trade practices and agreements, revoking security clearances for Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, and former intelligence officials who signed a letter discrediting the Hunter Biden laptop story. So Hunter Biden comes back into the picture again. Here we go. Formally establishing the Department of Government Efficiency, that's the Doge department, suspending the TikTok ban for 75 days. That's also pending some type of sale negotiation there. And then declaring that federal buildings should respect regional, traditional, and classical architectural heritage to beautify public spaces. So these are just a couple of things. Another thing that he did, he reversed that prescription cap that Biden administration put in place for prescriptions. So he reversed that. So people are going to have to pay more for their prescriptions now. I heavily don't agree with that. That's a problem. So for the people who said, oh, he's for working class, etc., working class people need to be able to get these prescription medications too. So these are the kind of things you need to point to. People are making memes already. This is crazy. I can't believe who came up with this stuff, man. Kamala Harris, I already told my husband on January 20th, 2025, he will sleep with the next president of the United States. And someone put a picture here of Donald Trump in a bathrobe. I don't even know who. Oh my God, my God, my God. So the other problem too that we're going to run into is Israel. He removed the sanctions that were implied in the West Bank, he removed those. That means this is Marion Adelson, I guess, venture. They're going to go all in the West Bank. There are already Palestinians in the West Bank, according to Dropsot News, that were stranded, that the gates were closed and they weren't able to get in. So people are just stranded on the roads. So here comes the West Bank project, which I warned you was going to happen. And I also think this still would have happened under Kamala Harris as well. Listen, Netanyahu was basically already given the green light to do these things. Do people not understand this? I see a lot of people on social media saying, well, this is what you guys get for not supporting Kamala Harris. I am seeing Democrats tell Palestinians that they hope that they burn. This is cult-like mentality, and we can't have that. So when I tell you no echo chamber, right? So we have all different types of views that are represented here. But what you have to understand is this was already in the works. People don't get this. Netanyahu already had this in the plan, the green light to go ahead and take over the West Bank. We talked about it last year. Last year, we talked about Israel decided to move forward with the expansion. So I don't know why people are trying to pretend like it's just now happening. We covered this last year. And pay very close attention. I will say this, guys. Pay close attention to the people who will have tears in their eyes during these deportations that didn't say a damn thing or care less about all these kids that were being blown up. Because that's how you know it's people looking out for their party and not looking out for the issue. Make sure you pay attention to the people who didn't want to protest during the Biden administration because they were Democrats and they said, just give them a chance while they continued to kill these kids in Gaza. Pay attention to those people to see if they have tears in their eyes if it happens under Trump's presidency, which I think it will continue to happen. That's how you know it's partisan and it's not really about the issue. These are things I pay attention to. We took a look back here to see how many executive orders have been implemented over time. When we look at Joe Biden's presidency of 2021, Joe Biden signed 77 executive orders. Donald Trump is headed to 200, right? But on the first day, and this is the part that I think is ever so telling, how many did Biden sign on the very first day of his presidency? So if we go back to that first day, you'll see 1, this is January 20th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we go to the 21st. On Joe Biden's first day, he signed 9. Donald Trump is already at 200-ish. So the thing that Donald Trump is showing you is what the president can do. To this point, it almost kind of sounds like the Democratic Party, they're conservative when it comes to strategy. They were conservative when it came to Kamala's campaign. Let's lean in with Liz Cheney. Let's not rock the boat too much. Rock the boat, baby, rock the boat. They were conservative with that. Why did Joe Biden only sign 9 on the first day? Think about all the things he could have signed into law. Donald Trump's out here signing executive orders left and right, fam. Left and right. Bam, 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 bam. Joe Biden signed 9. Let's go back and look at something else, actually. We'll just go up here. I love this link because you can find so much more on here. If we go to, make this a little bit smaller. Let's go to another president. If we go to Barack Obama, 2009, Obama signed 40 executive orders in 2009. You see how conservative the Democratic Party was? 40. On the first day, and I'm thinking of all the things that Barack Obama could have signed, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where are we? 9. Okay. Barack Obama, 9. Just like Joe Biden. Interesting. On the very first day. Now, Roger Meadows wanted me to look at FDR. Because I think what is happening here, it's like the Democratic Party tries their best not to upset Republicans so much that they end up moving conservatively in certain ways. So let's go to FDR, 1937. FDR signed, everyone see this. Let me make this bigger. Peep this, fam. FDR signed 256 executive orders. 256 executive orders. So when you hear people say that Joe Biden's the most progressive since FDR, no, that would probably be LBJ. Because under LBJ, didn't we also get, that was when you received the federal student loans? Think about some of those things that happened. How did they skip over LBJ? So the point that I'm trying to show you is that Donald Trump has continued to show you what can be done in the short amount of time that it can be done. And then also on top of that, another thing that you'll see is look at what FDR did. FDR did something closer to what Donald Trump is doing right now. So what has happened is that the Democratic Party, like I told you, has moved further to the right. Because over the years, they've decided to become more conservative about how they do these executive orders and just policy in general. And this is how someone like Donald Trump can come in and win. We're still a very divided country. You can see it in this video here from Status Quo. In the humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. Look at this. This is how divided we are.
In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. A fascist America. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. Lock it up. Of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. In the name of humanity.
I wish people came together like this to fight against the billionaire class. I wish people did that. You know, so you see what's happening? Everybody's divided over left versus right, but people are not divided over the billionaires. Like everybody needs to come together over the billionaire class. So I think what you're starting to see, and this is a big part of it, is that people are sitting back and they're saying, how is it that Donald Trump can just walk in there and sign all these orders? Well, FDR did too. The Democratic Party changed. That's just the reality of the situation. So I think the best thing for them to do is to, number one, they need to stop being so conservative. Because you don't see Trump trying to be more left. Just something to think about. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.